From proving everyone wrong with his incredible basketball chops to being called a big tub of lard by Stephen A. Smith, here's why the NBA doesn't understand Nikola Jokic. With Nikola, it started out slow, but became incredible. The Serbian began his professional career back in his homeland, where he played for Megabasket from 2012 to 2015. Even then, he was never the kind to dominate, but his abilities stood out, which is why he attracted interest and got drafted 41st overall by the Denver Nuggets in 2014. Right after that, Nikola's game got much better in Megabasket. Now, before entering the NBA, Jokic's evaluations weren't exactly phenomenal, but they weren't so bad either. He stood somewhere in the middle, with his true potential still up in the air. Many experts pointed out his lack of athleticism, though, and thought that his defense was weak, but even they admitted his game sense and floor spacing ability. Surprisingly, when Nikola got going, he emerged as a kind of unicorn, excelling at things the analysts thought he'd struggle with, and proved himself to be great at the stuff he was already good at. Not only did he clearly reach his potential, he also set new expectations as he thundered through his career's milestones. So, credit where it's due. Jokic proved his doubters wrong because he's a guy whose expectations fell far short of his actual production. So what's Nikola's production? Well, it's so good that as of June 2023, the title of the best player in the world is totally on the cards. Jokic is considered one of the greatest players in the league, and his status as a center is legendary. He won the NBA's Most Valuable Player award 2 seasons in a row. In the 2022-23 season, he bagged the NBA Finals MVP after he led the Nuggets to their first ever NBA championship. According to Giannis Antetokounmpo, the last person left standing is the best player in the world, and by that definition, Jokic is totally there, because he just won his first championship in 2023. Plus, the Joker is a tried and tested offensive player out on the court, who's also one of the best passers in the game. Keeping all that in mind, there's little doubt that he's on his path to make history. So, for those who still think his defense is weak and have an issue with his mobility, well, Jokic has proven that those things can't stop him. He's not a vulnerable player, and by the time the rankings will start pouring in after his winning season, y'all are going to be reading his name a lot. Still, even with so many accomplishments, why is there a disconnect between Jokic and the world? The NBA and the American fans especially don't seem to be too attached to the star. The sports writer and former ESPN host, Dan Le Batard, noticed this and shared his thoughts. He said that with Nikola, the NBA's got a player who's foreign, and if he'd been American, he would have been a star. Dan added that with just that change and no adjustment in personality, he would have made his way to the very top. But since that's not the case, there's a lot of confusion around Jokic. Dan said that he's a white guy dominating the NBA, but the people don't really understand him, because if they stop a minute and think about where he comes from, what his past is, it gets super rough. He concluded by saying that Jokic was Magic and Bird, yet America still hated him. Now, with praise as major as that, Nikola should continuously be in the spotlight, right? Well, there's a little problem with that. Jokic ain't exactly a mainstream interest. Becoming a star in this age demands self-promotion, because everyone holds the tools to control their public image. But Nikola's a man who prefers to stay out of the spotlight, and this desire for privacy doesn't work out for his popularity, because it keeps him at a distance from his fans. Still, he doesn't want attention at all, not on the court, and definitely not in his life. It's not like no one tried either. The Nuggets and several media outlets tried to boost his popularity, but with a guy who couldn't care less about it, they never got that far. Maybe Jokic's reaction to fame comes from his upbringing. He's from Sombor, a small town in Serbia, and his rise in the sport was totally different from many of the people who play alongside him. American players grow up hearing praises and are used to the attention. But the Joker's was discovered in a local newspaper by agent Misko Raznatovic. Maybe his experience has kept him down to earth. But imagine how different it'd be for the player if he shared some of his charisma. We'll never know though, and this is one of the reasons he's so hard to understand, because the fans don't know much about him at all. Still, you might be thinking that his game should be enough to make him a fan favorite, right? Here's the issue with that. He doesn't like to put on a show on the court either. With Jokic, it's all game and no gimmicks. His style of play isn't spectacular at all. So if you're the kind of fan who likes to watch and replay dunks, appreciate handles, and stare wide-eyed at deep threes, chances are that Nikola's not on your screen at all. His play is more about efficiency and strategy, and it doesn't exactly pop, so the casual viewer doesn't get attached to the player. Plus, the Joker doesn't shine in every game. which also explains why he's sometimes overlooked in the NBA because you know how much they love their scores. Instead, Jokic's boring layup over dunk style just slips past the fans, and he hasn't made it to the house of highlights in the NBA. Also, since his play doesn't have the potential to go viral, the young fans don't connect with him. Along with all this, Nikola's got a unique look to go with his basketball IQ, and even though there's no one as versatile as him out there, his athleticism isn't his best feature on the court. His speed, reflexes, and jumping aren't the stuff of legends, and sometimes you can see his arm muscles popping only when they turn red, but he's still an unstoppable force. Despite his unquestionable power though, there are still doubters, and here's where Jokic's race enters the discussion. You see, foreign players are seen differently than American-born athletes. Remember Shohei Ohtani? If you ask baseball nerds, they'd swear that Ohtani's hitting and pitching are totally Babe Ruth level, if not better. But the general public still hasn't caught on to it. Also, if people can accuse football commentators of giving black quarterbacks the cold shoulder, maybe the same could be said for basketball commentators when they're talking about a white player who's clearly a minority in the league. Also, Jokic isn't well liked by some of the commentators, and their speaking out can lead to other people or the league questioning him too. Kendrick Perkins even admitted on ESPN and Twitter that he criticized Nikola because of his skin color. Perkins accused him of benefiting from white privilege and even made up bogus statistics to go with the statement. The former pro said that the Joker had won 2 MVPs because of racism, and this encouraged white commentators to criticize Nikola to prove that they weren't being racist. Dominique Foxworth joined in too to say that Jokic benefited from the color of his skin. Also, Mark Jones has spoken about the player too. Even though he's supposed to be a neutral observer, if you look through what he has to say about Jokic on Twitter, you'll see that he doesn't seem to like the guy. One time, a writer posted a tweet praising Jokic, where Nikola was giving one of his teammates a key sideline signal in the first game of the NBA Finals. But Mark Jones said that giving a heads up to a fellow player wasn't a thing. Well, it totally must be, because Jones praised Rajon Rondo for the same move in the same tweet. With leading sports experts talking like this about the guy, no wonder Jokic is misunderstood. Also, Stephen A. Smith once called him a big tub of lard. Yikes! Michael Malone's got a theory about all of this. He thinks that people are just tired of a non-athletic player kicking their butts. Now, that's a good way of looking at it. In the NBA, players are valued a lot for the championships. Until they've got a title to their name, their accomplishments can go unnoticed. With Jokic, it's the same, since critics question him and label him as a stats padder. But things changed for Giannis Antetokounmpo and Dirk Nowitzki after their championship wins, and since Nikola's got one too now, maybe things will turn around for him too. So from being called a big tub of lard by Stephen A. Smith to proving everyone wrong with his incredible basketball chops, that's why the NBA doesn't understand Nikola Jokic.